Fleeting boots are the all new boots for Runescape, but are they worth it? That's what we'll cover in this video, so when you're ready, grab your cup of tea, sit back, relax, and enjoy. Fleeting boots are tier 80 ranged power armor boots that are a drop from the new Raksha boss, which can be upgraded to a tier 90 version with a shadow spike. These fleeting boots allow you to move around while using rapid fire, which can be useful for any bossing encounter where you have to dodge mechanics. However, rapid fire will still be cancelled if you happen to use either surge or escape. These 80 million GP boots seem to be promising, but how do they perform in a real PvM scenario? Before we hop into that, I would like to thank today's sponsor, Raid Shadow Legends. Psst. Do you like games with millions of players, tough bosses, and even raids? Before you say Protox,
but this is a mobile game, isn't it?
well, technically RuneScape is too. The difference here is that Raids is available on Android and iOS, and even on PC. The game might be simple at the core, but don't let that fool you, as there's definitely tactics involved in taking down bosses, which genuinely makes the game fun to play on the go. I personally really like the visuals of the game. It looks fantastic considering mobile game standards. And this month, Raid got their biggest update ever, being the Doom Tower, a giant tower with 120 floors, a bunch of secret challenge rooms, and 12 badass bosses to take on. There has never been a better time to start playing, so if you're interested and you'd like to get a huge head start in Raid, all you'll have to do is use the link in the description below to receive a free Void champion named Bulwark, who happens to be very useful for the Doom Tower. In addition to Bulwark, you'll also get an experience booster, 50 free gems, energy refills, and even an ancient shard upon first launching the game. All of these items can be claimed from your inbox at the top right corner of your screen. The first place I decided to take the fleeting boots was to Araxor, because at Araxor you do happen to move around quite a bit. Now the first thing I noticed is that if you don't anticipate the drag and swipe attack, your rapid fire doesn't actually get cancelled out, which is quite neat. This means if you don't count auto attacks or you don't anticipate the swipe attacks, it doesn't matter if you're using fleeting boots, which is pretty cool. Now I don't necessarily have footage of this, but rapid fire can kill you at Araxor if you don't cancel it out in time, either when Araxor webs, especially at high enrages, which can be annoying if you're used to just moving or clicking around to cancel out your rapid fire, as you have to cancel out your rapid fire using a defensive or another ability, which is even worse of an idea when he webs, or when Araxor spawns a mirrorback spider and you happen to use rapid fire and you're inside of Death Swiftness, you could easily KO yourself, which is quite nasty. So they aren't ideal here, but fleeting boots do work very well here in a variety of phases, and especially well on phase 4. If you don't have a Seren Godbow to pretty much knock out Araxi in one shot at around 35k life points, these boots are absolute heaven for P4. In phase 4, Araxi spawns a black blob at 25,000 life points, and this blob will hit you with typeless damage if you stand in one location. Now normally what you do is take one hit and then move out of the way, and it will bounce around a few times and then hit you again. But what you can do is run around Araxi constantly, and when you're kiting, one of your thresholds, being rapid fire, doesn't work because you cancel out by walking, but with these fleeting boots you can run around and still hit Araxor or Araxi multiple times. And if you're learning Araxor, this is honestly quite a good method of getting your first kills. It definitely makes it a lot easier because you don't have to focus on the orb. You can just ignore it, click around, activate your rapid fire, and deal big damage. Now of course, if you do have a planted feet switch and you're using a Ring of Vigor and your DPS is fairly good, there's a chance that you don't need to move around because your DPS is so good and your Death Swiftness should still be up after you finish the kill. But if that isn't the case, these boots can definitely help you out. Now, ignore my inventory setup because I really only came here for a few kills, and the kills were kind of fast, so I didn't get many flame walls, but if these boots ever become 10 to 20 million GP, that will mean that these boots will be available to mid-level players, and if you don't have super anti-fires and you're standing somewhere in the middle at the QBD arena, you can dodge the flame walls while using rapid fire, so I guess that means they're also pretty good at QBD. But again, if you have super anti-fires, there's no real big deal and you don't really need fleeting boots, although they're nice quality of life PvM gear here. Next up is Nex. Now ideally I would have loved to test the greater ricochet ability at the same time, but the thing is that thing is like 700 million GP, so unless anyone wants to feel generous enough and actually gift it to me for a video, I won't be testing out that ability anytime soon. But I was able to test the Fleeting Boots, and Fleeting Boots are excellent at Nex. Just like Nightmare Gauntlets that allow you to use snipe while moving, Fleeting Boots are so nice at Nex. For the shadow phase, for example, when you're running away from Nex, it works very well. If you're trying to kill the minions quickly and you happen to click on the floor, you won't accidentally cancel out your rapid fire. And for the final phase, if Nex is soul splitting and you want to run away or kite Nex around the arena, it also works fairly well. And the final, aka Zaros phase, is damage capped anyway, so you'd want to be using rapid fire during that phase. Is there anything I missed? Oh yeah, there is. If you happen to mess up Blood phase, and Nex wants a blood sacrifice, you of course have to move away from Nex, so rapid fire does actually work for that little part as well. So basically in almost every single phase, and including killing the minions, the Fleeting Boots work well at Nex, which means these are absolutely fantastic for Nex. So if you like solo Nex, be sure to add Fleeting Boots to your gear setup. Now ranged is probably the best style to use at Raksha, and rapid fire of course is part of a ranged rotation, and at Raksha there is a good chance you'll have to move every now and then, either to avoid the swipe or when you're collecting the anima from the shield around the arena in phase 4. These are two situations where the Fleeting Boots will come in handy because you can move around while still dealing damage. Of course, if you're doing solos, these boots are more important than in duos, because in duos you don't need them as much and they don't really speed up your kills, it's just nice quality of life. Now, as for solos, they're a lot more important, and they're definitely very good at Raksha, and if you're able to solo Raksha consistently, then these are a worthwhile investment anyways. Now, I will mention one thing: if you are using rapid fire and you're collecting the anima around the area, be sure to use a bow instead of Ascensions or any other crossbow, because the range can actually cancel out your rapid fire if you move too far away from Raksha during phase 4. Now, I did also test out the Fleeting Boots at Telos, and I did ranged Telos for the first time. Now, it isn't ideal, especially if you forget your chins the first time you attempt it, because the golems are quite tricky to do without chins. If you're going to range Telos, just don't forget your chin chompas, and you should be good. Moving in and out of beams using rapid fire is quite nice, and it is definitely a quality of life thing for Telos. And in phase 5, yes, I know I'm not surging to the green beam, I could have done that, but I purposely wanted to show rapid fire going off while walking around because footage. Now in phase 5, instead of using escape to avoid the rocks, what you can do is use the Fleeting Boots and rapid fire with the bow instead, move backwards, move back forwards, and you should be good to go. And if you're wondering, I did not die, I used Immortality just in time. I'm, doing 100% Telos here. I'm not a Telos guru, but I can say that Fleeting Boots should be useful at Telos if you plan to use ranged. Next up, my favorite place or places to use these boots, all of the elite dungeons. Now, pretty much every elite dungeon can easily be done using ranged. Of course, it isn't the ideal combat style for solos, as melee is probably the best for ED1 and ED3, just because hench, DPS, and melee escape. But ranged at Elite Dungeon 1 works very well, and not just at the bosses. If you're trying to get a cheeky little heal from some minions and you have Chinchompas with you can use rapid fire while walking around, still hit those minions or trash mobs, get some heals, and keep going. Fleeting Boots are definitely getting a thumbs up for me in Elite Dungeon 1. At Masuta, they can also be useful if you happen to be soloing using ranged, especially if he starts spinning. You can use rapid fire after using devotion and walk away from him, so you can kite him around, and while kiting you can still deal a decent amount of damage, therefore Fleeting Boots work there as well. At the Sanctum Guardian, of course, when you're moving around, avoiding the hands, they are definitely useful too. I did find myself cancelling out my rapid fire anyway though, to try and res from the huge breaths, because those give you like a 5k heal. Personally, I do think they're very useful here because you click around a lot, at least I do personally. I like to move around a lot during the Sanctum Guardian fight, and for that reason Fleeting Boots are great here. The same thing with Arstellarn if you're trying to avoid the neutron star that will kill you to get, the white portal thing. Fleeting Boots again come in handy as you can move around while using rapid fire, given that you do have enough adrenaline for the threshold, of course. Arstellarn is a pretty quick fight both in trios or in solos, so I don't think it will make the biggest difference in terms of time, but it is still quite nice to have. As for Veracliff, it is great if you're getting bombarded by the dragon, or you're trying to do the eggs mechanic. Moving around while dealing damage just feels great. And I can see a lot of people that have certain times at Veracliff definitely improving using these boots, as if the fight is fairly long, you'll get a bunch of those egg mechanics. And if you can use rapid fire while walking around and dealing with that mechanic, that just means more damage to be dealt. As for the Blackstone Dragon, you don't really move around that much unless the fire spawns. As for the hands part, you can simply stand on the spot or tile I'm standing on, and you will be safe from the moving hands, so they aren't really that useful there. If for whatever reason you like moving around, then I guess they are useful, because then you can use rapid fire while moving around and avoiding those hands. So yeah, I think it's pretty clear that these work well in Elite Dungeon 2. What about Elite Dungeon 3 though? Well, the first boss, the Crassian Leviathan, you guessed it, makes you move around and you have to dodge. Or you die like that person just did. But when he does the sweep attack, using rapid fire and moving around, you can avoid it entirely, which is very neat. Without Fleeting Boots, you wouldn't be able to use rapid fire during this part of the fight unless you wanted to cancel it out straight away. The SGB spec doesn't work here, so there's no reason to use the SGB spec at the Crassian Leviathan. So, Fleeting Boots at the Crassian Leviathan, given that you are using ranged, are pretty useful. As for Taraket, I didn't even try ranged here because I don't think the Fleeting Boots are going to be making a big difference here. And you should be using melee here anyways, because melee is literally so good against Taraket, especially using the Salve Amulet and Mutated Barge. As for the Ambassador though, Fleeting Boots work well here. Very, very well indeed. If you have the ECB as well and you were to use the spec while using Soul Split and you're using rapid fire on these spinners, you will absolutely demolish them while walking around, and it's so easy. In fact, it would get you ranged solo pretty quickly. Now, I didn't do ranged solo because A, I kind of proved my point in trio with the spinners with a proper clip anyways, and B, I really like melee for Ambassador solos because, yeah. And I don't have an ECB. I'm really just making excuses to, not have it in the video, but let's be honest, I've proved my point here. Fleeting Boots are great for the Elite Dungeons. So to sum it up, are Fleeting Boots worth the money? In my opinion, 80 mil for boots is a lot. That being said, I spent 90 mil or something on my Blast Diffusion boots. That was a long time ago, by the way. I would argue that Fleeting Boots are better than Blast Diffusion boots and Laceration boots, given that you're doing a boss that requires you to dodge a lot of mechanics. Otherwise, they're really not that special. They're not going to give you better DPS unless you are used to cancelling out rapid fire because you're avoiding mechanics. In that situation, it will give you more DPS in actuality, in practice. So they're definitely worth it for those bosses. Next, Elite Dungeons. Racks maybe not so much, and they can be dangerous at higher ranges. Telos ranged, yeah I guess, but people usually mage or even melee Telos. I guess it's completely up to you. But I hope this video informed you somewhat. If you did like the video, leave a like down below and maybe even consider subscribing, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.